Good evening. For a call to order the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee meeting Tuesday, January 16th, 2024 in the City Hall chambers. Identify potential conflicts of interest. I see none. Citizens' comments. That's all I see is a bunch of aldermen and department heads, no citizens in there, so we will move on. The consent agenda. What's your pleasure? Motion by Mr. Wagner.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Reigold. Any questions? Seeing none, please vote. Oh, all in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried. No items were removed from the consent agenda. Number 6, request to recommend council approval of budget resolution 01-2024, $50,000 for pickleball courts from 205 fund, presented by Tom Butke, member of the Economic Development Board. Mr. Butke.
Yeah, I would request on behalf of the committee that you approve the $50,000. I compare this to when we did the Little League fields. There was talk about that we weren't going to put the Little League fields where they are now. And we found the money from dividend money. And now this is a much smaller scale, but they can have a lot of tournaments and things with the pickleball. And again, Marshfield can have nice things. So hopefully you'll support that $50,000 and they can get this going hopefully soon and we can attract more people into Marshfield. Thank you. I'd entertain any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Butke? Mrs. Spiros.
Hi, Tom.
Hi.
Hey, I have a question about the scale of this project because I see like we're looking for this 50,000 for EDB, and my understanding is the utility gave 75,000 yesterday or committed to 75,000 yesterday. Can you tell me what the total of this project was? How much was raised outside of the city? Because I feel like, didn't we give before this 50,000? Did the city not give money towards this project already?
I guess I would defer to either Steve or Justin on that.
Good evening, Rebecca. Hopefully you can hear me.
I can.
The city committed $150,000 towards the project, the budgetary process approved in 2023. The city did receive 2 grants, $25,000 from Wood County Seed Committee, as well as $10,000 from the Community Foundation. The goal of the fundraising group was to raise $300,000. I don't know what their number is. They've been working privately. I know they're getting close, but they're not there yet. They're hoping to get, I guess, all the funds raised by this summer or maybe early this spring.
If I can. So I wasn't ready with a pen. So you said the city committed $150,000 during the budget, and then and on top of that, you received seed money and grant money?
Yeah, I applied for a grant with Wood County through the Seed Committee and received $25,000, and then applied to the Community Foundation and received $10,000 from their grant process. So $35,000
Okay,
grants.
So $150,000 from the city during the budget, $35,000 in grants, $75,000 from the utility, and now $50,000 from the EDB. What was the grand total of this project? And I'm just asking because we all know that funds are very tight. And I love this project. I think it's a worthwhile project, but I'm just looking at the total amount that's already been dedicated by the citizens of Marshfield.
Last night at the Board of Public Works, they approved us to go out and solicit bids to come back for their approval. So we don't know exactly what the construction cost will be. It's projected to have increased by 30 to 35% from what we originally budgeted, 150,000. But it's hard to say right now until we go out and bid it. So I really don't know. So we're preparing for much larger than 150. Our consultant thinks it's going to be closer to 300.
For the total project, I'm confused here.
The total project's the pickleball courts, not the bathrooms, not the playground, not the parking lot, not the pavilion. Overall, the estimate's about $1 million.
Okay, that's the number I was
The
looking for.
pickleball is
Okay,
just
and that,
one component of the overall project at Brain Park.
gotcha, that's the number I was looking for, the $1 million.
And then the
thing.
pickleball
Okay.
group is hoping to raise enough money for perpetual care. So if we need to reseal, crack fill the courts, replace nets, windscreens, they'll have funds in place. So they're hoping to build a nest egg. So when we go back to, if something fails, they're able to just replace it rather than wait for the city to have enough funds available.
Okay, all right. So between utility, the EDB, and the grants, and what the city has already committed, that's 275, 85, 95, 305, $310,000. From what I can calculate.
That would be correct if this 50,000 is approved. That's my number as well.
Okay. I love this project, but I'm actually going to vote against that because I feel like our budget is extremely tight, and with things that are kind of hovering over our heads with pending lawsuits, things like that with the Marshfield Clinic, our budget is going to get even more tight. And just in good conscience faith, I can't contribute another $50,000.
Just to correct this a little bit, the 50,000 is not taxpayer money. It actually is coming from the dividend that we receive from the utility. Steve, am I correct on that?
Yeah, that's correct. Those monies originated from the dividend we get from Marshfield Utilities.
So it's not coming out of the taxpayer money?
So the EDB fund, you mean, the part of that?
Yes.
Right, okay. I understand that, but, okay. And, you know, it's a horse apiece. I mean, the city gets a dividend from the utility because the citizens of Marshfield pay the utility for their services and things like that. So, I appreciate the explanation, though. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Ms. Tompkins.
There. I have a new microphone. I have a few questions, but first of all, I just want to say that I love the fact that we're starting to be forward thinking in our fundraising. And this was something that Tom Turchie talked about a year ago when we were talking about trails. And he said, we need to start putting money in the Marshfield Area Community Foundation for maintenance that no one can touch, so that when the trail needs help, there's money already there. So I love the fact that this is the first, I'm pretty sure this is the first fundraising group that is doing that. That is going to help us because in the future, we're not going to be borrowing money to fix our trails, which is what we're doing in the CIP. So not only are we borrowing the money, we're paying the interest on the money. So it makes it a lot more. So anything that people can do, I love that. I do believe, because I was in the utility meeting last night, they said that they had raised the money for the 12 courts and that they were going over and beyond so that they would have the maintenance fund. And they would also like to contribute to more things that are getting done in the park, which would include the pavilion and potentially the lights. Now, why is that helpful for the taxpayer? Because we're borrowing to do the pavilion and we're borrowing money to do the lights. So if people can raise money to do that, again, we're not paying interest, which then goes back on the tax load, which is our debt service, which ends up people pay, on their tax bill anyhow. So if we can do it up front and not have to borrow the money because of private donations, that's amazing. And the fact that they're willing to go even beyond the pickleball courts because they want it to be a great place for a tournament. So they want good bathrooms, they want good pavilions, things like that. So those are the two things. I did ask Jennifer a few questions like on just right before the meeting. I'm so sorry, Jennifer, but I wanted to know how much money was left in the EDV fund. So Jennifer, do you mind telling us?
Good evening. Before audit results are final for 2023, there's just under 600,000 of unrestricted funds in the EDB fund.
And will this fund be replenished, or have we changed the rules so that they won't get money anymore?
The rules have slightly changed. The dividend that comes from Marshfield Utilities is now being received into the general fund. And based on the budget that the EDD board brings forth, the general fund will then decide to allocate money for their proposed budget. So this year, I believe that's a little bit less than we actually received from the dividend. But it should also be noted that the dividend is not 100% guarantee. It does come from utility funds, but that is somewhat dependent upon their investment in the American Transmission Company. And if they have a higher need for capital calls, that would come off the top before the amount that's left over for that dividend to be calculated. So while we have enjoyed, roughly $250,000 to $270,000 worth of dividend from Marshfield Utilities in the past, that's not a guarantee going forward.
And out of that $600,000, is that right now at the discretion of the council to use, or is that really the EDB's discretion?
At this point, it's not budgeted to be used. So should the EDB board wish to spend anything beyond their budget in 2024, they would have to come, like tonight, before the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee with a budget resolution with their purpose for additional funding for 2024.
So this budget resolution would be to take out of that fund?
That fund, right. It would come from their fund balance and reduce that level for this purpose.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Regal.
Forgive my ignorance here, but is this a premature request? I mean, if we're talking about $1 million here as an estimate and we haven't gone out for RFPs or RFQs, are we asking for this budget resolution too early? When we're talking about $50,000 out of $1 million, that is a pretty small portion of it, which still matters. It still adds up. But to me, it almost seems like if our estimate is $1 million and we haven't gotten RFPs or RFQs, it might be a little too early to be asking and committing.
I think could be just the opposite, to show the people out there that the city, the EDB and the city sees this as a very important thing, because this is a sport that's very popular in other communities, and we have to keep up with the other technology and things that the other ones are doing as well. So I understand what you're saying, but I think it can work either way.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wagner.
Thank you. This thing, a couple of things. Number one is that I keep hearing that, oh, it's going to be great. We're going to be able to bring tournaments to the city. Essentially, that's going to benefit the hotel and residency, or the short-term residency business around the Marshfield area. But for that reason, I think that this actually belongs under the auspices of Visit Marshfield. I don't see in here where they've put any money into this yet. And yet they are the sole recipient of the money that we get from the room tax. And they basically dribble it out in little $1,000 and $2,000 grants. I was surprised that they do that. I think the city of Marshfield got a $5,000 grant from them one year, And that was considered the biggest thing they were doing at their awards banquet. I would like to see Visit Marshfield put some money down in here. The other thing, I ran across some paperwork this morning that was a very long resolution that was written in the last days or the last council meeting before we voted on whether or not to build a new library. And basically there was that long resolution said that at this point we wanted the community to participate in building the new library, and they did, by the way. The city put in $3,000. The library foundation raised, $3 million, and the $4 million was raised by the library and the citizenry. They put it on. And there was also a codicil in there that how did that work? Okay, they considered the community center project, because now we were talking library, and we were talking $7 million library. And now here's, oh, by the way, it's going to cost an additional $2 million for the community center. And they'd identified and broke it out and said that's a separate project. And basically the city it's not in the capital improvements plan. And it's not something we wanted to do. So if it's going to be done, it's going to be done with private money. Guess what? It was done with the $2 million worth of private money. And then that private money included rents, like from the, I think the job service, and I think there have been a couple others that were renting. Mr. Casperson's outfit didn't move over there until this was well underway, I think. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, if the community wants it that badly, maybe we should let them raise the money for it, and maybe we should let Visit Marshfield lead the fundraising drive, because if they're the ones who wanted it that badly, I think they should. So I guess I've been in government service a long time, and I've seen these fads show up, and sometimes they go away and sometimes they don't. And basically, I just don't believe in going and chasing fads. So I'm not going to support this. So thank you very much.
Do we have any other questions? Ms. Tompkins.
Mr. Casperson, you can be up there actually. I don't believe that Visit Marshfield gets all of the room tax. I believe Parks and Rec gets a certain percentage of it. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a 70-30 split.
Okay, so 30% of room tax goes straight to the Parks and Rec.
It goes to the city, and then 70% goes to Visit Marshfield. Yep.
Okay, so if we do encourage different events that come to our city, that does bring revenue to our Parks and Rec, which helps with our maintenance. Could you give a ballpark number of, in our budget, how much would come from room tax to Parks and Rec specifically?
If we build pickleball courts?
No, just in general, like.
We budget about $160,000 a year for capital improvements that go towards parks. So about $160,000 a year goes for capital improvement.
Which is amazing. So that's fantastic. I do have a question for Mr. Butke. Do you happen to know, because last night during the commission meeting, they seemed to imply that they were raising their own private money. They just didn't say how much they had raised. Do you happen to know the ballpark of that?
I do not. I have not been involved with fundraising or with the utility. Just as far as them coming, the presentation that we had at our EDB meeting, what their proposal is, what they want for a pickleball facility. That's all I'm aware of. To Mr. Wagner's point, I don't think this is a fad, Mr. Wagner. Pickleball's been around for quite a long time. We're behind this, and this is not going away. This is not going away I can't see it. It's just a very popular thing for people that maybe can't play competitive tennis or things like that. And pickleball is something that a lot of people that get into. Now, I will agree with you, Mr. Wagner, about the utility or these other entities, Visit Marshfield, for example. And Matt comes to our meetings, and I will be sure to ask him about that too, that we got to get something from them too. And I don't think that there's any intention of not doing that. I can't say that for sure. But I agree with that, and I think that'll happen.
And since I still have the floor, if I may, I will just like to remind the committee that we are already going forward with this project. The pickleball courts are on old tennis courts that are no longer able to be used. The entire asphalt surface is cracked. It's absolutely unusable. So we have to redo this park anyhow. It's an eyesore. It's sort of a bruise on the, if you were going to say the body of Marshfield, like we have to fix it. So to share this from different funds is actually a great way to fix it, as opposed to us borrowing the money to fix it and then paying the interest and putting that back on the tax bill.
Mr. Reigel.
Mr. Bucky, what's the opportunity cost here with that $50,000 coming out of 205?
What is, I'm sorry?
The opportunity cost. So like what could we potentially use that $50,000 for if you weren't to use it for this?
Well, it would be for the whole project, as I take it, Justin, is. Oh, EDB,
Right, yes.
if we didn't get that. Okay.
Right, correct.
It's hard to say. You know, we get requests for different things, but I don't think there's a lot out there at this point. Steve can correct me if I misspeak, but I don't think there's anything designated for that at this time.
The board periodically gets requests for different things, you know, for studying things, consulting services, for helping with projects. You know, that undesignated balance that Jennifer mentioned earlier, you know, gives them some cushion at this point. Although you never know what things might come up that they'd want to recommend use of their funds to accomplish in economic development. Maybe some project that the city wants to see, but the funding just isn't coming together. So opportunity cost is always a great question. It's hard to say what this 50,000 out of the 600,000 would mean.
Right, because I'm still, and I know Mr. Bucky disagrees with me here, but I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that $50,000 out of $1 million project needs to be committed right now. There may well be a time for that. But I think I'm probably echoing everyone sitting here that we want to see this project go forward. But 50,000 is well within the error margin of that $1 million. And I know there have been concerns on EDB about funding of 205 now that it goes through city council in general before specifically going there. So if those fears are, you know, true and well-founded, we need to be pretty deliberate about moving money out of 205. If this were something that push it over the top and secure the building of the pickleball courts, I'm all for it. I just have a hard time envisioning right now that the 50,000 needs to be committed today. It's not a matter of should we commit it. It's a matter of do we do it today or at a future date.
I don't think that's. I think that's an issue that could be. You know, you could put something in there that, you know, if they make so much that. Then EDB gives them 50,000 or whatever. I'm open to that. That's certainly not my decision. But again, you know, there's something's going to be done with those tennis courts because they're an eyesore. So you're going to spend money regardless. So we got an opportunity to do something right. And now's the time to get it going, I believe. So I feel strongly about that, but I can understand your point that I don't necessarily disagree.
I guess I'll just have one last question here, then I'll pipe it down. What's the drop dead date for us committing these funds if the funds are needed?
Justin?
There's no date specifically, a drop dead date. We're going to hopefully go out to bid for construction on the pickleball courts in the first quarter of this year by March, and then get bids back within that time frame, usually about a 2-week period, 3-week period, and then bring to the Board of Public Works for consideration. So if I were to give a best estimate, mid-April.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Spiros.
Thank you. This is a good discussion, and I do realize, that those tennis courts are in disrepair, but I'm just curious. We did commit $150,000. I don't want that to go missed in this conversation. $150,000 was already committed in the budget, and I'm just curious as to when we did that budget, what was that $150,000? What did the line item say for that? Was it to repair the courts? What actually was it designated for?
You should stay up here.
Because I don't want it to come across. I don't want it to come across as if we did not anticipate that there were some repairs needed for that park and that we didn't already commit to that, because we did. $150,000 is already committed in the budget for that, if I'm understanding things correctly. And please correct me if I'm misunderstanding that.
You're correct, and it was budgeted for the replacement of those tennis courts. So it was going to be, those tennis courts were going to be replaced.
Okay, so it's not as if we just are not doing our due diligence as the park owners, meaning the city as the park owners. We did take that into consideration, and we did budget for those repairs, and those are already in the budget. So this is bonus money, in my opinion, on top of that. So I just wanted to be certain. I actually like pickleball. I like the idea of the tournament. It's not anything that, for me, it's always the bottom line, the bottom dollar. And where things are very, very tight, and they're about to get significantly tighter this year. And, I just am very particular with needs versus wants. And that's what this all comes down to for me. And I just want to be very specific about that.
Mr. Wagner.
Thank you. I guess I like the idea that you can do this, that you want to do this. The reality is, many of us on the council anyway, have sat in this room and listened to some of the most dire predictions you ever want to hear about our revenue stream and about what our obligations are going to be in a very short time. And when this hits and things look really bad and the taxpayers are staring at a huge tax increase to cover it, what's our answer? Build them a pickleball court. I don't think that's going to hold up. I really don't. The question I have for the chair is there a motion on the floor, sir?
No, not yet, sir.
Okay, so, okay, there's no motion. I'm not going to make one. Thank you.
If I could. Please.
Sure.
You can go back to the tennis courts. Yes, you could replace those, but you're going to have tennis courts. We have, I think, a fairly abundance of tennis courts. What's popular right now is pickleball. That's the difference here. I think we've increased our facilities for tennis at the high school and other places. You could speak to that, Justin, if you want to.
Yeah, I don't think there's a demand for tennis courts as there are pickleball courts, but either way, those courts are deteriorated to the point of needing replacement. So whether it's tennis, basketball, pickleball, whatever, it's going to require an investment of money, which is about equal. So it's all equal. Tennis courts are the same material, so same undercut, same fill material, same asphalt, same thing. So there won't be significant changes from pickleball to basketball to tennis. It'll all be relatively the same.
Ms. Tompkins.
Justin, this is for you. Okay, so just to clarify, we in the CIP, we budgeted $150,000, but earlier in the meeting, you said that the contractors are predicting the bid would be close to $300,000. So even though we budgeted $150,000, really we're looking to other sources to complete something that the city's hoping to do. And those other sources of the Wood County grant the 10,000 that came from, was that the Marshfield area
The foundation. Yes.
foundation? Wasn't there also 10,000 from room tax? Was there?
No, just
Okay.
that's part of the 150.
And then the 75,000 that the utilities is committed, all of these together are going to help us accomplish our goal that we originally thought was going to be 150. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
All right. Seeing no more questions, do I have a motion?
I move to approve the transfer of $50,000 from the EDB fund to be, I don't know where we transfer it. Do we give this to Parks and Rec or do we transfer it somewhere else? I move to approve the budget resolution for the EDB for $50,000.
And I will second that. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
All right. Motion fails 3-2. Suggested items for future agendas. I see none. Oh, Ms. Tompkins?
I'm sorry. I'm learning a lot actually being on the Utilities Commission, and they do some great, strategic things. So I was just wondering if we could have just a tiny, tiny HR report on our turnover rate. And then also from finance, if we could just have a tiny report on, do we have a goal for cash on hand? And then where are we on that goal? So just those two things.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Ragel, motion to adjourn. Mr. Wagner seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.